Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. I got a video today from FBE Capital. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that. Ciao. It's Chow Time.
When it comes to paternity testing, a lot of people like to stick their heads in the sand and make this about not trusting the mother.
A lot of people, or women, I don't think very many men are against paternity tests. If they are, I don't even know if they're men.
That you're even willing to have his child,
calm
and you're going
down.
to now question my loyalty to you. Like, oh, this pisses me off. Get rid of him.
But the reality simply is, the consequences for men are a lot more severe than a bruised ego.
You have more than just a couple days in jail to worry about.
It's so easy for a man to be stuck paying child support for a kid that's not his these days.
Pay the $65,000 to support a child that isn't his.
For 10 years, Mick shelled out more than $100,000 only to find out Lockie wasn't his son.
To around about $140,000.
Wanted me to pay $64,000 for a child that's not mine.
He had to pay support for another man's children.
Let her pay for him. Let her get the man she laid down with to pay for him. He goes free.
Exactly. The true deadbeats that women always say that fathers are deadbeats, you're letting him scot-free. The one that actually put the seed in you. Not these men that you're trying to trap.
I never even slept with her. I got a lawsuit when I was young, and she basically just said, that's the money I'm gonna get, and she got it.
They don't really care about your condition, your situation, your circumstance. They just want their cash.
They do.
If you don't pay your child support, then you can be looking at a felony conviction.
I'm getting...
Seriously, to get a felony conviction for not paying your child support. I get that there's men that purposely don't, but there's men that constantly try and they just don't make that kind of money, and it's a detriment to themselves. That's kind of effed up.
Garnished. I'm getting thrown in jail. I'm getting felony charges.
You have taken our lives. I felt anger. I felt conned.
For a whole year, you basically just lied to me about the biggest factor of my whole life.
It was suddenly like being hit by a sledgehammer.
And she said, I've been having an affair with a man from work. And she said, I'm pregnant with this child.
Did you consider taking your own life?
Many times.
How many other men are you aware of who've taken their lives?
I can imagine many men took their lives over this issue. I can't imagine raising kids for 10, 12, 18, 40 years of my life and then finding out later they ain't mine.
Because of this issue of paternity?
Quite a few.
Really?
Yes, boys, mandatory paternity testing. It has become a very controversial issue, since in general, men love it and women hate it.
And she shouldn't have to submit herself to a paternity test.
I will never ever give him a DNA test. You will need to take me to court.
Now, ironically, these same people that are demanding trust are only demanding it in a one-way direction.
Correct.
Since not only does the woman always have 100% information on whether or not there could be another man involved, while the man must simply trust.
It is a trust issue, and to me, that's a deeper concern.
This also gets compounded by the fact that if that trust was ever broken, it is the man who is now 100% liable to a massive financial burden. And ironically, those same women that want blind trust from men will tell other women to never blindly trust their husbands when it comes to the family finances.
What are some signs that you are the victim of financial abuse? He doesn't give you information about the money.
And not worry if you're going to be okay. So if that's having a bank account that they don't know about, or having money tucked away because it's money you made, that's what you need to do. And it doesn't even have anything to do with trusting a man. Your peace of mind, too, that you have that.
See,
it is crazy that these women really only see one way. Me, me, me. Anything that benefits me is proper. Anything that benefits you, no. You're an evil mother chucker.
Funny how that works, huh? That women need assurances and peace of mind when it comes to money, but when the man wants peace of mind and assurances when it comes to his kids, then he's a piece.
My man's playing video games at the beach right now? Awesome.
and you should divorce him.
If John was like, I'm absolutely getting a paternity test either way, divorce.
This is the ridiculous nature of this debate, since the reality simply is, these are exactly the same situation, where one party controls all the information and the other party simply wants access to that information. And you can argue all day long that asking for that information is a lack of trust, just like you can argue that not willing to give up that information is a sign that you're hiding something. Now luckily, there are some women who do understand that in today's society, it is completely understandable that men want those assurances for the most important thing in their lives.
How do you know that a child that is birthed by a woman is in fact your child?
I do believe that maybe it should be mandatory, because as women, we would always know that that child is coming from us, right? How do you guarantee that that is that man's child? It's literally just our word.
And then give that man peace of mind, because you know what? With the statistics that have come out and the data that has come out with how many women cheat in marriages and how many women cheat in general, if I was a man, I would want a paternity test for sure.
See guys, there's still hope. But while the majority of women are shaming men for wanting paternity tests, saying it's a lack of trust, those same women want complete access to your phone and they want to know your location 24/7.
I have every passcode to everything of Tyler's. I have his location, all these things.
If your partner will not show you their phone, they're hiding something.
And if your partner does not want to share their location with you, it's because they don't want you to see something. They're doing something suspicious.
If your partner doesn't have anything to hide, they're going to be like, sure, here, use it.
So what is it, ladies? Should husbands and wives simply blindly trust each other, or should both have complete access to all the available information? Clearly, women only...
Nope, they just want only their information to have everything, or their side to have all the information so they can leverage it against us.
...care about full transparency when they are the ones who have to deal with the consequences of not knowing. And on top of that, in this entire debate, there's still one very important factor that's often overlooked, and that is the impact to children when families find out years later that the mother lied about who the real father is.
I find out that he is not my biological father. This obviously was devastating for me. It kick-started panic attacks and health anxiety.
I felt awkward, I felt ashamed, I felt that I was...
And these kids shouldn't feel that way. It wasn't their fault. Like, these kids are also victims of these evil mothers.
Having an identity crisis, I had abandonment issues. It took me a really, really long time to really understand how messed up I was.
Ouch. Please drop a like on the video if you think that preventing paternity testing only protects the mother's ego and hurts everyone else, and comment down below what you think. By now, it's pretty obvious that lying to kids about who their real father is can seriously damage them for the rest of their lives, and it could also lead to a very terrible situation that people aren't even considering or discussing.
I was intimate with my half-brother. But you didn't know. We didn't know.
Yep, that happened. And trust me, there are even far worse cases than this out there. And
there was that one underbelly one where the two were half siblings also.
So we'll dive into a couple of these real-world situations just to show you how quickly things can spiral out of control. However, before we do, let me first clarify that when I talk about mandatory paternity testing, I'm not talking about testing every single child that is born. Since if you and your spouse simply do not want that, then obviously the government should not be involved and forcing you.
Should it be forced? Should it be optional? Ooh, there's a lot of slippery slopes when it comes to privacy and your individual liberty.
Exactly.
I agree
However,
with that.
if any type of legal proceeding is taking place where the father is required to pay child support, facing jail time for refusing to pay child support, or has any other financial liability to the child or the mother, then I say let's first determine if that guy is actually the father.
Agreed.
But fundamentally,
that's actually a good way to go about
there
it.
has got to be some kind of proof if you are going to indebt a man for 18 years, potentially more. This should be a mandatory thing.
Now, limiting or even banning DNA testing and hiding behind the excuse of supposedly doing it for the family's or child's best interest, like they do in France, is complete nonsense, since finding out the truth through other means much later in life doesn't just damages the family.
I mean, it's called 23andMe. It's been happening a lot
as a whole, but it can also severely mentally fuck up the kid as well.
that the man that I thought was my father is not my father. My whole life has been based on one big ass lie.
And I feel sorry for these women and men that are going through this. Can you imagine? I can't. Like, that's how hard it is for me to imagine that my father isn't my father. I just can't even think about that right now, if that was so true or not. I mean, there was a DNA test that was made already when I first came to this country because I was such a darky compared to my family or to my parents. So I know they're my parents, but I can't even fathom that. Wow.
And I know I can't go back, and I cannot change things.
But before we get into that and the more
fault.
widespread insane paternity cases,
It's sad how much a lot of these people take this burden onto themselves as if they're the bad ones, if that they've ruined things for other people's lives and stuff. No, you guys are victims of an evil woman that wanted things her way and lied.
I think it's important to highlight just how easily men can be locked in legally for child support, even when DNA testing proves that they are not the father.
Okay, guys, the last and most common and by far what I consider to be the most dangerous scenario where you could be required to pay child support for a kid that's not yours is in the Title 4D child support scenario. The petition that the state is going to file, it's going to be a petition to establish paternity and to establish child support. So in that petition, they are alleging that you, the father, the respondent, are the biological father of the kid or kids that are named in the petition. And if you don't contest that, like immediately, and you're screwed, you're done.
Now, critics and MILF feminists will say that it's all your fault and that you simply...
See, I hate the whole victim blaming or blaming the men all the time. Yes, men have to take responsibility. Yes, men should take responsibility. Yes, men should learn. But men get screwed over too. We get tricked. Like, people can't figure out everything in their life and go about life as some alpha Chad or something that's never gonna get screwed over, guys. That's crazy. People get screwed over all the time. We have to have some sympathy and empathy for people.
You should have addressed this in the early stages when you had the chance.
Can you imagine?
Sounds like he's very insecure. I mean, definitely something that like toxic masculine, like
Shut
I need to have progeny to like extend my seed.
This mother.
Type.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Sip jitsu's off the roof.
However, what these soy clowns conveniently leave out is that many men were never even aware that all of this was going on, since it's very easy for women to scam the system.
Tons of cases where the mom who applied for the benefits puts her home address as the place where dad can be served, and then the process server comes, she accepts service. She says, oh yes, he lives here, she accepts service, right? And then throws it in the fireplace, burns it, throws it away. And dad gets a default, dad gets a child support order against him, and dad never knows that any of that happened until he gets pulled over like a year or two later for a suspended driver's license for unpaid child support.
You see?
It's crazy.
Now, it's very easy to tell men to just find a good woman and marry her so that you won't be dealing with all of this.
We tell men all the time, and I also say, you're gonna make mistakes. It's not easy to vet these people. It's not easy to vet people in general. There's people in your lives that backstab you, lie to you, and cheat on you all the time. You just have to learn to step away from those people and just find better people.
But the reality simply is that the millions of men who had to deal with this all thought that their wives were honest, faithful, and trustworthy until they had their entire world destroyed.
I felt like I lost a lot. You know, I'd lost my wife, I'd lost the dog, our home, my parents-in-law, her family, and it felt like they'd just been snatched away, just came crumbling down like a house of cards.
But unfortunately, this is the reality that screws over millions of men around the world, since the problems with paying child support go much deeper than just paying for a kid that isn't yours. They will make your life an absolute hell by first setting a ridiculous child support amount that doesn't even make sense if you're doing proper child cost analysis.
What the other methods do is attribute expenditures to children which are not made out of pocket. It's a fiction.
Once the amount of child support has been set, it is often very difficult to get it lowered when the father is struggling financially, which has bankrupted many men and has even sent them to jail.
Let's take a look at this scenario. What happens if you are forced to overpay child support? You inevitably fall behind. Now there's back child support, called an arrearage. In many cases, arrearages have to be paid with interest, so that's even more money out of your pocket. When you cannot pay your arrearage, guess what? Your driver's license gets suspended. Now, how are you gonna get to work? And speaking of work, when those taxes are taken out of your employment check every 2 weeks, you will not get a tax refund at the beginning of the year to get that money back because now you have that arrearage and you have the interest. So now that the back child support amount has grown and your license has been suspended, a petition for
How are you supposed to live after that?
contempt is filed against you in court. Incarceration. This system is supposed to be about supporting the children. But tell me, how is having incarcerated...
I'm glad I don't know anybody personally, anecdotally, that's gone through this much of the ringer right now.
Parents in the best interest of the child.
So with the consequences this severe, it is truly insane how easily a man can be trapped into a financial obligation to a child that isn't even his. Which begs the question, how do you end up in a position of paying child support for a kid that you can definitively prove is not yours? Well, the problem lies in the current laws and how they are enforced. Because even though some viral clips and videos on social media give the impression that new paternity fraud laws have been implemented, they are somewhat misleading to how well they actually protect men, since these laws only apply in a few very specific jurisdictions, and more importantly, they only govern new child support cases where parentage has not yet been established. And
Damn, I didn't realize that it was only newer cases. It's not gonna, yeah, that makes sense too.
This is exactly where the problem lies for most men.
Number one, a lot of people don't understand the fact that even if they've signed that acknowledgement of paternity, that in and of itself does not give the father legal rights to the children.
Most men who are not married to the mother will simply acknowledge the kid at birth by signing some form of VAP, which is a voluntary acknowledgement of parentage. Now during this time, you are simply excited about having a kid and you're not really thinking about all the consequences of signing that piece of paper. Even though you become fully financially responsible for a child, when you sign a VAP in many jurisdictions, you do not get full parental rights over that same child.
No custodian. That's crazy that you don't get any rights as a father when you're not married to the mother. What the hell? I did not know this. It went this in depth into that. What the?
Custodial rights are established by being on the birth certificate until an unmarried father goes to juvenile court and asks for visitation or custodial rights.
This is absolute bullshit and something I wasn't even aware of for a long time. But unfortunately, this is the reality that screws over millions of men around the world, since this doesn't just apply to the US. The Netherlands, for instance, only changed this ridiculous law as recent as January 1st, 2023. So any guy who signed a VAP in December or November of 2022 is still royally fucked, since the mother can demand child support without letting the father have access to the child. So guys, don't just blindly trust, and as always, stay safe out there. This was the need for mandatory paternity testing.
Damn, I actually learned quite a bit in this video. Shout outs to FBE, always making wonderful videos. Yeah, can we just make it so any type of child support, any of that stuff, start DNA testing everybody. I agree that just at birth, forcing everybody to do a DNA test is not the greatest thing. I actually don't want that either. I don't want everybody to have access to our DNA like that. So when there is child support cases, incarceration, like FBE said, let's get some paternity tests going on. Please like, comment, subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. And,